Good morning, and thank you all for coming to the Adult Sunday School class today. As most of you know by now, my name is Nancy Schongalla-Bowman, and I'm delighted to update United Christian Church and friends and tell you more about the progress of this exciting mission called Adopt a South African Preschool. Our church helped conceive this charity about 2 years ago, and Adopt a South African Preschool as a new being was actually born about a year ago. This project received a $1,000 grant from the church for new initiatives that are being developed as nonprofits by church members. And so that means I get to update you every year because of your contribution in that way. And others have also made some donations, which has really had a hand in making a better future for children in poverty in South Africa. Joining me this morning is my house guest, Dr. Nico de Klerk, who came to Princeton Seminary to co-teach a course with Professor Bo Karen Lee in spiritual theology at the end of January 2020. He and I met a few times, and I began to informally edit the book he was writing. Then 3 things happened at once. COVID hit, the seminary closed the apartment building where he was staying, and the airports in South Africa shut down. So I invited him to come and stay for a couple of weeks till the airports would reopen. That was about 8 months ago. So meantime, he has been working on a book, and I've been able to help him more actively by really being quite present to the project. But this stranded refugee will be returning to South Africa December 8th, now that the airports are open. After a slideshow about the preschool project, I've asked Nico to talk about the mission that he's involved with on behalf of youth and the unemployed in his country, which is the subject of his book. And the book is about to go to a real editor within the week, so that's truly exciting. Hopefully there'll be a time for Nico also to answer questions that you might have about South Africa. So let's begin. I'm going to share my screen with you. And is that the slideshow? There it is. Okay, so can you see the slides as we begin the story of Adopt a South African Preschool? It all began with an invitation from Dr. Milan Nell and his wife Marlies, when they invited me to lecture on psychological and spiritual well-being at 3 South African seminaries in August 2018. The seed for ASAP, Adopt a South African Preschool, was planted while on a tour of Langa Township near Cape Town. This shows you a picture of my tour guide's hand there as we're driving down one of the streets of this very large township. A township is a place where Black South Africans were basically transported out of homes, wherever they may have been before that, to places outside cities, and basically were just dropped there to start their lives somehow. This area of Langa, as I understand it, was just an open field. There was nothing there, no water, no buildings, nothing. And as you can see, these shacks that have been created by whatever people could find are actually homes for families there. This is a scene of Langa that we passed from the road. I just took these pictures from out of the van. And again, these people are living in these places that are just kind of hanging over this quite polluted river. What was amazing to me is the contrast between the outside environment, which you've just seen slides of, and this preschool that we stopped at called Lakwezi Educare and Aftercare. This is our tour guide kind of pointing some things out. And as we were in that preschool, which you can see looks like any preschool here with its bright colors and cubbies for these little book bags and tables and chairs for the children, there was a carjacking taking place right outside the building. And we also visited the medicine man just down the road. But seeing that contrast, I knew immediately that I wanted to contribute to the success of these teachers and the children. And so I began to have regular communication by email with the principal Nemonde after I returned to the States. Again, this is what you can see going on. They were singing the alphabet back and forth with their teacher. These children were doing some drawings. In the fall of 2018, after I came back, everyone who heard about the preschool offered support. Friends, family, people in my exercise class, colleagues, members of United Christian Church, and others responded with donations to fund Nemonde, the preschool director's request for supplies, toys, non-perishable food, and even clothing for the children. Marlise Nell worked with Nemonde using funds from the States to meet those needs. Actually, she and Milan came to the seminary on a tour with clergy from South Africa, and we had about a 45-minute lunch, during which time I learned that Marlise had a career in retail selling preschool toys, puzzles, resource books, everything. And she was retired from that, but could really help us get funds to Nemonde. I gave her $1,500 the next morning before they took off on the rest of their tour. And she used that with Nemonde to choose what kinds of things that school really still needed in the way of supplies and equipment. And there was a handful of pages of these Excel forms that she and Nemonde, the director, looked over together to figure out what Nemonde really needed for the children. And then Marlise actually funded all the shipping of the toys. And 40% of that 1,500 went to non-perishable food because Nemonde feeds those children, as needs to happen in settings like that. Now, fast forward to January 2019, and Marlise and Milan were here. Gosh, I'm getting my dates mixed up, but that was 2019, and spoke about South Africa at our church and the need for preschool education during worship. And they made the point, the future of South Africa depends on preschool education, which has been stated by a number of leaders in South Africa in just that way. Princeton Seminary students were taking a study tour, and they thrilled Nemonde by bringing in their suitcases children's clothing, teaching supplies, and funds for a particular printer that she really needed for what she's doing there. United Christian Church gave Adopt a South African Preschool a $1,000 grant from the budget line for new nonprofit initiatives being developed by our church members. And this is covering administrative costs as for the website and affiliation as a nonprofit, which may be happening with something called the King Bowden Foundation, which helps many nonprofits in Africa receive funds from the States and from Europe. But this is a picture of the tour group there, Nemonde in the middle with her striped dress, lots of smiles. They just met her she was waiting for them at their bed and breakfast in Cape Town, and they unloaded their suitcases right there. You can see the suitcases, 22 hours of flying. This was the first thing they did when they got there before they even hit their beds. And now you can see pictures that Nemonde sent of some of the things that were packed in those suitcases, believe it or not, and the printer that they purchased and were unloading there. And you can see children wearing these t-shirts that Linda McGowan sent over, all kinds of Mickey Mouse, Disney t-shirts. And just take a look at this little boy who's holding up a package of underwear that we sent. And just imagine what the dreams are that he has in his heart or will have that getting a preschool education will make much more possible. This is what Namonde said when I asked her about the preschool graduation for the first class of children that had come through. And this is what she said. When God told me to do this kindergarten, which she means preschool, in 2014, I did not have nothing. God instructed me to plant a seed in these children that no one could take from them. Praise God. We praise God and ask for protection for these children. And every day I ask God to give me strength to make them happy and give them love and food to those who don't have any. Some children don't get love from home. With the graduation, we are teaching parents to not give up on their children. One day they will grow up to be the doctors, lawyers, teachers of the future. Preaching the word of God to the children, it's my calling. I hope you will understand. This is another picture of the graduation, which they clearly make a big deal of in South Africa, and she wanted to mirror that for her children at Lakwesi Preschool. So in the fall of 2019, that's when this project was really born, because Marlise and Milan came back to the seminary for 4 months while Milan was working on a book. And we began weekly planning sessions together. Now, this is, wait a minute, I must have missed something. Yeah, let's back it up here. That's the planning sessions. There we go. Oh, they had Thanksgiving with us last year. Adopt a South African preschool in 2020. These were some of the steps. We began a partnership with the Nels Church, where they worship, called Stella Strat Church in Pretoria, and a partnership with Penn Forum. Penn Forum is an interdenominational organization that's been doing social service for the poor in Pretoria for over 3 decades. Marlise began ordering toys and educational resources in consultation with people from Penn Forum, and 35 preschool curriculum and resource kits in Tupperware totes were created to lend to 55 caregivers in different settings around Pretoria that Penn Forum was already working with, trying to help these women who were just babysitting 20 to 40 children in their one-room apartments all day, be able to do something more than just have them sit in the front of a TV. As many of these children, even in their care, have never held a toy before. So also in this time, over the last months, I've begun to work on the website and explore how best to anchor this preschool. And the Penn staff, just since COVID lifted some of the restrictions, have been trained by Marlise to train and coach the babysitters, the caregivers in these 55 settings, on how the toys they can swap in and out each week contribute to early childhood development. This is Marlise and Bussy. Bussy's one of the Penn staff, opening up boxes of toys which had been ordered and shipped to this church, and then they were unloaded and transferred into these boxes by this team of members of the church and staff from Penn Forum. And you can see that masks were needed, but this is all the boxes that have been made so far, and they are actively in circulation. This was an email that I received from Marlise on the 25th of August. She said, "What I can tell you is there were no dry eyes at Penn when the boxes were delivered. As for me, I feel like the birth of a baby, exhausted, thrilled, thankful, with all the other emotions, dreams, hopes, and expectations one has for a baby." She continued, "Without your faithfulness to God's touching your spirit, this could not be. I stand in total awe at how all this has come together, how all the different players have come to this point in time, literally from across the world, I'm excited to think how it will continue in all different directions and to different places as the children benefit and carry this blessing forward. Praise our wonderful God. You can see Marlise teaching some of the people about early childhood development. There she is again. And one of the people practicing on this balance beam that is also available now. And they're just enjoying trying out some of the toys that are in these boxes. So what's next? Well, first of all, continued training of caregivers who, after several years, may be able to become educators, not just babysitters, who qualify for a certificate in early childhood development. But they really get some pretty steady, rigorous training by the Penn Forum staff to be able to have their daycares, their babysitting settings moved to really preschool education capacity, and their own identity moved from babysitters to really educators. The South African team is also researching a new preschool hub in an area called Mamelodi, a huge township with countless informal babysitting centers that this hub could provide with resource totes, like they're doing in Pretoria. Actually, caregivers there, I'm just remembering, are already being trained by Penn staff who are bringing the totes to them and doing the training there, because public transportation from where they are back to the Penn setting in Pretoria just doesn't work. It costs money, it takes time. These transportation vans are filled, and COVID is very significant in South Africa as well. So we want to fund and create at least another couple hundred resource kits and seek larger donations of seed money for new hub schools in rural and other urban areas. The goal is for new preschools to be as beautiful and functional as you saw in the picture of the Lakwesi school, but also have the capacity to provide preschool resource kits and training of caregivers in the numerous informal daycare settings that surround any new areas where we do build hub schools in South Africa. So here you see the team again, and that just seems like a good place to close the slideshow. There we go. So now I'd like to introduce my friend Nico again and invite Nico to share more about what he is busy with, which is one of my favorite South African expressions, on behalf of the youth and the unemployed in his country. Can you just move forward a little bit?
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. It's, just the community and being in the presence of, brothers and sisters. It's really a great opportunity for me, or a time for me, confirming my experience of American people over many years. And I just really want to emphasize that what I've learned and what we are sharing, I'm very much under the impression of the link, the connection between South Africa and America in many, many ways. So first of all, my appreciation for that, the generosity and the intention and the involvement of American people, the American spirit, all over the world, but very much so in South Africa, walking into townships. If I say townships, these communities that Nancy referred to and showed pictures about all over South Africa, and in every community you find these things that she was like showing and sharing. Angels working in those communities. We have to deal with the legacy of apartheid. we're only 25 years now down the road, not 400 years. So we still have a lot to do and a journey to follow. So yeah, with my background, I then became involved with the development of entrepreneurship among the Black teenagers. I ended up as the national coordinator, taking the South African team to the World Championships in different countries. Started in Russia and Moscow. We also went to Philippines, and every year it's a different country. So I then became aware of the potential, number one. For instance, with the emphasis on mindset development included, the South African team ended up in the 4th place in Moscow. And our team were coming from townships. You know, it's not like the best schools in South Africa, but they were competing against the best teams in the world. So that night I couldn't sleep. It's like a new insight and realization of this potential and hunger. So when I got involved in different townships, it was confirmed. And by the way, discovering in many of these townships, the youth of America, young girls, students in different schools in townships, and then you become very much appreciative of the spirit and the intention of Americans. I really want to emphasize that, because we're not always aware what's happening within our own context, and we don't appreciate that enough. Like in South Africa, South Africans, obviously, you know, you don't see inside your own box. So dealing with that hunger for education, for knowledge, for involvement that these young preschool children experience through this project, the same applies with teenagers. So my focus is on teenagers. So I did this walk in South Africa, 1,708 miles, 4.5 months, walking to different communities, visiting schools and unemployed, learning, researching, and then presenting workshops on entrepreneurship skills, doing exercises with them in which to develop the mindset. Because you have to differentiate yourself out of your own circumstances in order to see something new that's possible. So there's a lot of mindset development work that needs to happen. So then I became aware of the fact that if you think of teenagers 1 year, 2 years before leaving school, what's going on in their future planning? Given the circumstances and my research in more than 100 communities and schools, just working on that, less than 5% of them are thinking about their future or planning or doing research. Less than 5%. So if whatever input, and I'm planning a lot, but whatever you can come up with, and you can take that up to 15%, to 20%, to 30%, and create the platforms using technology, using the goodwill, using the social network to make this to expand, it speaks for itself. So what I feel, what I see is many times images, like the eyes of that little boy Nancy was showing. What comes to mind is, you know, these airplanes when they landed in the African countries and with food from the United Nations, and then you see people how they're just running and scrambling for just basic food. Now, that's an image that comes to mind when I think of education and South Africa, the given circumstances, the legacy, everything else, but then the need. So education and sharing education is like that. and that is where my focus is on in different ways, going back to South Africa. Director at the School for Social Innovation, connected to University Stellenbosch and different other platforms, my own non-profit company. It's all about this mindset development, providing individuals, learners, teachers, that with just that one thing that can make a difference in which they will approach, creating a different energy and working from that onwards. And for me, that is the calling, that is the outcome of being a Christian and being a church, etc., is to make a difference in the practical circumstances, you know. That is preaching in a different way. It's yeah, I think that's sort of first phase sharing.
How about if you tell them about the book, Nico?
About the book.
About the book.
You know, writing about the book for months, or being enabled by this period of time to just focus on what actually happened there and how to reflect that in a book. And what is the message? Well, the message, if I have to sum it up in like one sentence, it is the importance of changing the mindset. And when you do that, you unleash an energy for this person to find his or her way. You know, what's your passion? What is your life all about? To think about it from a different, have an experience of at a higher level of yourself, your own personality. There's no room for that. You've seen the shacks there, you've seen the circumstances, and one can endlessly go on that. But what then? So it is that empowering experience, and I experiment with different ways of communication using rituals, symbols. I tap into the Mandela legacy because that is a huge thing which we share globally. If I say the Nelson Mandela legacy of peace and forgiveness, imagining yourself walking out of prison after 27 years, you've got now all the power and you can really retaliate. It was like Gandhi in India. I mean, it's the same thing. And then have the ability to rise above. Is that not, you know, what Christ's role model was all about and is all about? To rise above and to answer with love. So to enable these teenagers, 16 years, more or less 17 years, to be able to get into that level, you know, it's like different ways of communication. So if I say, tap into the Mandela, how do you do that? The next moment you stand in front of a class in a school and you want to tap into the Mandela legacy, there's much more creative ways than to tell them about it and to say, we must be proud of our legacy. So this is what I do. What I did is the following, you know, I ask them to close their eyes and then I will speak like Mandela, and the reaction was just like overwhelming everywhere. Not even in South Africa, everywhere. So it goes like this, and I will do it for you. So for instance, Mandela will speak to them and say, let me just get my thoughts together. Let me tell you, just do that one thing that will make a difference to your future. Say that you believe in yourself. You deserve it as the youth of South Africa. I thank you. He always ended his speeches like that, you know, I thank you. Always, I thank you. Now, the emotional reaction of people and of these youngsters, 16-year-old, not even born when he walked out of prison. So I started at the Mandela statue in Pretoria, in front of the government buildings. And I've ended at the Mandela statue in Cape Town, on the balcony where he had his first speech after being released from prison. This was 2018, this was in his centenary year, his 100th birthday. So therefore, symbolically, I visited 100 communities on my way down to Cape Town. Speaking at each group, like him, seeing and experiencing the reaction, the emotional reaction, what's happening, screaming, hallelujah and amen and applauding and crying and cheering. How is it possible that we're not tapping into that more and also share that with the world? Because sitting on the Camino, the Santiago Camino in Spain, I can tell you so many things. You get so much exposure there to the global community, sitting at a table with three guys from Belarus, the country Belarus. And all they want to speak about was Mandela. Then you realize incidents like this, you know, okay, the value of social assets. So this is what I'm doing. It's about social innovation, changing the mindsets. Now you've got the white community from this side as well. A lot of understanding, support, encouragement. I would say, for me, I feel it's like 90%. And you have the 10% resistance and, you know, you're crazy and naive and a dreamer and obstacles, sabotage in, not just on the walk, but also in life. You have to deal, that's part of it. So it's a lot about thinking. Therefore, I emphasize three aspects, three disciplines from the academic context, bringing that together. So the one is obviously knowledge about socioeconomics, business plan. You have to have basic business skills development. Therefore, the entrepreneurship competitions, business plan knowledge in whatever way. That's a given. But then you have neuroscience, the latest concepts, principles. I did exercises with each group. For instance, if you do this, it's brain integration. Do this every day. Do this every day. And you will see how your mindset, how your thinking will change, you know, and seeing the learners buy into that. You've got the vision exercise. You've got the block in negative energy, physical exercise by rubbing your tongue from left to right against your palate. And it's like removing negative and block negative energy to go into your mind. And there's like so many, there's like more than 300 exercises that we know of now. I connect to different people in the world. Kelly Shaver, Professor Kelly Shaver, mindset research in South Carolina. Richard Davidson, a well-known researcher, a Neuro Institute in South Africa. There are others. I really want to connect it with Bruce McEwen here in Washington University. Then you have obviously Carol Dweck in Stanford. So there's a lot of mindset development research going on. Brain gym, kinesiology, alternative approaches, you know, I use all of that, did courses in all of that. So to integrate that and then give it as a package in a township for teenagers to buy in, because you must see how they enjoy these kind of things and what's happening and the feedback that I get now, even 2 years later. So, socioeconomics, neuroscience, and then the spirituality side. The spiritual side of each individual is so important, you know, to go to this higher level of thinking. So Edward de Bono became 30 years ago my most beloved person, and I had the privilege of meeting him last year because Edward de Bono awarded this project, this walk in South Africa, with a global award as the best social development project in the world, which I'm very proud of, very grateful for. But my dream came through, and that was that I was like invited there to Malta and awarded this award, you know, which was also awarded at the Life Learning Academia in Slovenia, etc., etc. But then I got invited to him for dinner, and maybe I can share this story with you, because there's always the fun part in it, you know. So Edward de Bono had this joke and thing going on. He's always wearing very colorful socks, very bright, colorful socks. It's actually shocking. And then, you know, he loves to tell you why. But, you know, I've got a lot of information. I know a lot about him. So, yeah, he's obviously then sharing that with me. You know why I'm wearing these socks? No, I don't. And he said, well, you know, I'm very attractive to women, and I use the socks to like distract them a little bit, and it gives me some space, you know. All right, so my personal story and sharing is like I'm single, and you know, and usually never wear socks, you know. This like Italian slip-ons, and you don't wear socks with that. My brother lives for 25 years in Italy, so. Then I said, well, Edward, do you know why I'm not wearing socks? He said, no. I said, because that's how I'm desperate, Edward. That's why I'm not wearing socks. You know, it's like, so we were having jokes and fun and so on. And this is Mr. Out of the Box. If you think of his impact on thinking models that developed, you know, out of that came Otto Scharmer, Boston, you know, design thinking and critical thinking, and different thinking models developed after lateral thinking, where lateral thinking, just as to summarize the different options and interpretations of, you know, one thing. Yeah, so if you think of the value of that for solution, problem solution, so you've got to be able to integrate all of this and present it in a package that makes sense for people on the ground. This can't be figured out in a classroom. This must be figured out at the level where you want to apply that. A starting point, the spirituality for me personally, this is a calling, but you have to be prepared to spend effort, energy, time thinking of what's the right thing to do? What is that one thing to do with a specific group to make them think differently, see options, potential, and creating the energy to do that? So the challenge is now to do that with communities, cultural groups, church groups in South Africa, and may God have mercy. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much, Nico. It's a man of passion who definitely has a mission. So I wonder if there are questions that people would like to ask, especially Nico, since he can, yeah, I think she's just unmuted, everyone.
Admit.
If you're not admit. I do that, okay. Yeah, so maybe we can go to gallery view and just see. Is there anyone who'd like to ask a question for Nico? And if so, just unmute yourself and fire away. Or you can ask about the preschool project too. Okay, Edie, unmute yourself.
Just click there on
Yeah,
just say
maybe I
again.
There.
I just want to say that first of all, I'm in awe to be in the presence of this spirituality that I think is missing in the world and in the church. So I can't tell you how much people like Nancy and Nico are needed in this world. I loved hearing about the generosity of the American people. That was uplifting for me because it seems living here that we don't even hear about that anymore. This point of the importance of changing the mindset, I think, is just brilliant. My daughter Karen in Colorado has worked in education her whole life, and she has worked at alternative programs to what is traditional education. So she's made a difference out there, in a similar way that Nico and Nancy are doing in South Africa. I do think that dreamers, real dreamers, try to make their dreams come true, and you're just a wonderful example, both of you, of people that do that. I guess I have two questions. I assume the age of these children is 3 to 5, something like that.
The preschoolers, yeah.
Can you tell me a little about the education or lack thereof of what happens after that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Edie. What I understand, and Nico can corroborate or say something different, is that preschool education is not funded publicly. There are very few preschools that are affordable for people growing up in township settings. So when school starts in kindergarten, children who have not gone to preschool are going to be the Black children who typically have just a mom. They don't even have a father on their birth certificate, let alone active in their lives, many of them. And so they're going to be behind and they don't catch up. Is there anything you want to say about that more, Nicola?
Well, what comes to mind, when she speaks the reality, if you think of the legacy of apartheid, fathers being removed from their families, like sending all the fathers of New York to Los Angeles. And then what do you expect to happen like 15, 20 years later? Not all of them stay in touch or even sending money home or whatever. So that's the reality, the harsh reality. And well, I think, we need to invest at the right place. So this is a bigger picture to just understand how it is where we are. And if you think about mindset, it's like changing the mindset of a teenager investigating his future. But it's also about the parent. How can I make education possible for my child?
Yeah.
It's for the teacher. How can I say and do that one thing that will make this student of mine thinking differently about themselves? Because we all know how important it is. A teacher can say one thing that you will remember 30 years later.
Yeah. And a lot of the teenage girls know that they will get some money from the government if they have a baby. So it becomes more of an option than education, because further education is not on their minds and access to it is just not available. So did you have a second question, Edie? I know we want to get more people involved here
No,
too.
no, that's fine. Nancy, even in this time of COVID, donations can go to the church, right? Designated for you for that, for
Yeah, there's a
religious.
drop-down menu on the church website, and Adopt a South African Preschool is one of the
Okay,
possibilities there.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, and just to add to that, those resource boxes that you saw, the totes of toys and puzzles and so on, those each cost about $60 to make at the wholesale prices that Marlies is able to get. But to create a new hub preschool in another part of the country, or even in the surrounding area of where they're now working, is about close to $10,000. And that's not to run it, that's to get the buildings in order so that preschoolers can come and be taught there. Teachers can get training from the outlying informal creches, is what they call them, these babysitting things that are going on in people's apartments. They can have a place to house the toy boxes there that then can be used in different areas around, and an office for the person who's the lead teacher. And some of that's coming into place in this Mamelodi area that is our new target for a hub preschool.
Dale.
Dale. Yes.
Dale and then Steve.
Dale and then Steve.
Yes, I'm appreciative of the Nico's, it's really, my words, mind, body, spirit approach to change the mindset, and with incorporating the body and the exercises in the mind and so forth. It's very similar to the work that I do, of connecting Americans' bodies with their spirits and their sexuality with their spirituality. So the overwhelming deterrent to a pleasure-centered life that's sexually satisfying is overwhelming guilt and shame and fear. So my question is, you did not talk really about the emotions. I would like to know, what are the emotional, where do you find teenagers emotionally? Are they just kind of checked out? Are they discouraged? Are they just, what's going on there? Are they, like, in poverty itself is shameful in this country. So people are shamed for that, shamed for being the color, so guilt and shame is a piece of what holds people back. So what would you say the emotional content is of teenagers in South Africa that you work with?
Are you acquainted with the labyrinth, Dale?
Yes. As a meditative practice?
So first of all, to have an understanding of the numbness, not aware. Now, in your field, if people are not aware, they are not aware.
Right.
It's like waking someone up of what is possible. Now, in the culture of the Black African cultures, it's more group orientated. With something like external factor like apartheid, it was like all suppressed, cultural, from the physical environment, even where you're being raised. So it's literally like waking people up and giving them that experience of, I'm a person, like seeing myself actually in the mirror. Now, I use, again, ritual symbolism. It's opening up, you've got to open up the space here for thinking. And if you use one symbol or ritual, everyone can make of it whatever he or she wants to. So I use the labyrinth with that. I've got a mobile one that I'm always taking with me to workshops. There's not always time to do this. But when they're having that experience, it's like coming back, and it's almost like being afraid. You know the process, you know, when you start waking up emotionally, it's almost frightening, and that's why people sometimes not cross that boundary. So you've got to make it safe. You've got to create the context for something to happen. So if I say process-orientated attitude of your input, it's like using something in order to make something to happen. So that's a meta level of communication. I mean, you can, if you walk into a group, I'm going to end with this because this is important. Don't tell them, guys, please trust me. I would have lost if that's what how I would have approached schools. But when you walk to them, I've never had a trust issue. It was established by the ritual, by the symbol of walking to them, and they were just blown away. There was no trust issue. It was already there without one word.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, did you have a question?
Yes, yes. First of all, Nico, thank you. Thank you for all that you are doing. Just thank you for that. I'm very excited by the entrepreneurial focus of your work. And I'm wondering how important eventual self-determination is in your model for the future of these children. And I'd like to suggest or ask about the possibility of the toys and the educational materials becoming the focus of a local enterprise, so that you're, in addition to training children and training staff, you're also creating a local business opportunity that would support that endeavor.
That's a great idea, Dee. For people, you're talking about for people there on the ground
Yes,
to
yes,
make those toys.
yes.
Well, we know children are inventive with making toys out of anything that they can, just find, because children learn by play. So they'll transform a stick or a can or anything. But you're really talking about kind of a cottage industry or something that could really grow into a supplier for these toys. It's a great concept.
And produce income to support
Absolutely.
the project.
Well, there's so many things that happen when someone gets an idea and pursues it. Their whole identity changes, their income changes. People who know them start to dream and think as well. And what they produce benefits people directly as well. So maybe that will become part of a business plan of one of the young people that Nico is connected with, or others are connected with in the townships. But we'll keep that online. Does anyone else have a question? Yeah, Ruth.
Unmute her.
I think she's unmuting herself.
I just wanted to say, Nico, also how amazing your work is, and how I can tune into this idea of I had the image of you breaking all these chains, as people move to their own potential. I just saw these golden these chains that were being broken. Yeah, because you're working at a neurological, spiritual healing level that is taking place all over our beautiful planet. Truly, we just don't see it and know it. And that's where our heartache comes in. The awareness that people like you and Nancy and so many others are adding to this cause of humanity at a large, huge level. So I'm always filled by that. And again, I give you great thanks for your work and the connection that Nancy, plays with that also. So thank you. It's beautiful, truly beautiful.
Are there other questions or comments that people have?
Eddie.
Edie.
I just wanted to ask if Nico and you would run as the next president and vice president for this country.
Oh, man.
I will not say any more.
Yeah. But, it's been fun to observe Nico observing our culture from the inside, by being here and listening to NPR. And I don't have TV, so we can't watch the news, but, it's all over online and everything. And then also the communications he's having with friends in South Africa. What's happening here is really being piped around the world. The whole take a knee thing became a big controversy in South Africa, with some people choosing to do that and others being very, very upset about it. And, the phrase, I can't breathe, that's come up in contexts there and in other countries. And our elections have been watched so carefully and with bated breath. Even some strong Trump supporters in South Africa communicating with Nico as well. So it's been pretty interesting.
I can just comment there. It's so important. It was like, I am on two platforms. The one is the University of Ohio Institute for Democracy. So there's like 65 countries participating. So I am personally connected to them all over the world. The other platform is from Netherlands, Masterpiece, and there's like 80 to 90 countries there. So we meet annually. We meet online. You know them personally. A medical doctor from Pakistan was my roommate last year in Tunisia, just to give you an idea. So, yeah, you can communicate on a personal level with a global community. That's one way of, addressing my own mindset. There were people emotional, crying, so involved in what's happening in your country in America. And me personally, I've never been so emotionally involved in what's happening in another country, because I've seen in the Philippines, I've seen in different countries in Africa and everywhere. I've been to more than 70 countries. I've seen the American presence everywhere. Then appreciating their attitude of sharing from a situation of abundance, driving around here, seeing what it's like from north to south, from Maine to Virginia, been to Key West. You are blessed can be a cliche. Mm-hmm. But to have the privilege of seeing the difference between what you have and then the rest of the world in other countries. Okay, so that establishes your role and responsibility and leadership. And to cut a long story short, it was traumatic for the rest of the world when suddenly the leader was not there for a period of time. Now, from a mindset perspective, for me, this is a wonderful opportunity of appreciating and redefining the identity and role and being applauded and welcomed by the world.
Yes. Yeah.
Coming soon, already in process. It gives this was actually opportunity for a re-evaluation and acknowledgement of the the leader's role, for the leader himself, he or herself, as well as the followers in the world. So, I can go on about this, but we all have to go through a process that I would like to, it was so wonderful. I really need sometime a personal conversation with Bill Bloom, for instance, Something had happened in his mindset to have the ability to like sing for a virtual audience. And I'm thinking that while he's busy singing, worshiping, I'm thinking about what uplifted him to get to that point where he can do it. We all know what kind of confidence that asks from a person, and that something needs to happen to you to get to that level. Okay, thank you.
Anyway, the world is breathing a collective sigh of relief that we are in an election shift to get it to fully happen.
Nancy, hi, can I just say thank you to your worshiping community for offering you and Nico this time to share with us. What a wonderful gift. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Great to see you and hear your voices.
Oh, Laura, Laura's a dear friend from New York. Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else want to comment or ask questions? Yeah.
Nico is using the language of changing mindsets, and I totally get that. But I think Ruth and I would say this is really a spiritual paradigm shift. That if the U.S. is to reevaluate its role in the world in more compassionate terms, or being more fastidious about who we're putting in leadership roles, it's going to require the heart and soul shifting as well. So I'm gonna when I hear Nico talk about changing mindsets, I get that it has to come up here, but I also think it's connected down here to the heart, and there is an underbelly to the United States that perhaps, well, no, it's on grand scheme. Everybody can see it. The underbelly of deep insecurity and the fears of what we know we are abundantly blessed, and we are afraid it will be taken away from us. So there's some of that stuff happening that's got to be addressed at a spiritual heart-to-heart level. As well as, the mental. So when you talk about rituals, using the ritual to get, I think that gets at that, which means it puts the church and faith communities right smack dab in the middle of what's going to emerge on the other side spiritually.
Dale, just to elaborate on that language, the outcome of this conversation is not about how many dollars are going to be deposited. That is the outcome. That is not a mindset changing thing. So let me leave you with this challenge then. What is the one thing that will make this a new awareness, insight that will have an outcome? What is the one thing that you can do? And it will differ. There will be so many choices as we are. What is the one thing that you can do to expand, explore your way of thinking about, say, abundance? Yeah. To develop a new perspective. What is that thing you can do? That's not going to be to write a check. That's not going to, you can't buy it. To write a check and make a deposit is an outcome of a change in thought.
That's right.
Now, if you go about with that attitude, life becomes a lot of fun and adventure.
We're getting a bit of a sermon before the sermon. Can always use that.
Could I just say when when your book is done, would someone will let us know the name of that? And I certainly would love to read it.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good book. I've read all 240 pages. Made a lot of changes. Yeah.
Have you got an editor who's saying yes yet? Or is this just an interview editor for you?
Which editor?
Do you have an editor who said yes, or is it just an interview with an editor?
Oh, no, that's a long process, but it's a very interesting process. And editing, they say it's one of the most important choices. So that's a process.
But you do have someone in mind.
Yeah. No, definitely.
The book's going to go out by the end of this week, don't you think?
Yeah, to the editor, not not published, not going out. It's a process, but I'm learning a lot, and it also became an entrepreneurial and a growth process. And that's actually how everything's become in life. It's like even staying here.
The whole 8 months.
The whole 8 months up to now, it just opened up new perspectives. It's a new life attitude. That's the personal benefit from me. And now it's just like sharing that from the place of abundance to link it up with what are my messages to American people. 2014, I sang a song to the people in Chicago, having such a great time there. And it ended up on, when somebody put it on Facebook and so on, I really feel like doing that all the time. And part of the song went like this, that my message to people will be, whenever you meet an American, just be good to all of them. Meeting in a community like outside Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, you drove for 20 miles into this township. It's huge. Then you find this young American student there, and at the next school, another one. So I ended up with a bill in Durban at a place where then we've met during the weekend by just saying thank you to them. And they've got parents back at home. And we all know some of the history. No. Oh,
Yeah.
Great.
A lot of gratitude. I see
Lance.
Yeah, Lance, and then Bill as well. And then we'll probably have to close it with those two, maybe.
The question I had is grounded in your assumption about the need for transformation in thought and perspective, which, is, I think, very, very to the point and very relevant. What I'm interested in is when you look at the church in South Africa, how much transformation in the way the church thinks is necessary? Because the history of apartheid does not speak well of the church's stand in South Africa. And while we talk about transforming the minds of children and teenagers, and we talk about the church needing to address the spiritual component of this transformation in perspective, how much does the church need to be transformed in its thinking in South Africa?
Really, thank you so much. So important. Given my own training in the old system, and I had to make the transition to the new system and so on. It's going both ways. It will be really unfair to say that nothing has changed, but it's a process, and there's always room for new awarenesses and insights and for things to happen. And the church is also growing. And if I say church, I include like all denominations. I don't work within one denomination anymore. It's opening up, and it's an unfolding reality, as David Bohm will say. Unfolding reality. So there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot to be so excited about in process of happening. And then you have the sleeping partner segment. It's really both. But walking from, if I just take the walk then again as an example, to walk from community to community, you will find both there. And to be honest, I was more blown away by the positive, appreciative support, buy-in, ideas in each and every community. It's like this project that you've learned from Nancy. It is present in every community. So, yeah, that's the best answer for that one.
Okay.
Okay, and is Bill still with us, or did he have to go?
Bill.
Oh, there you are.
Can you hear me? Yeah. I just want to make a brief comment about, I like your idea of meeting people where they are. And I liked your song also. And I think the only thing I would change about your song, could you repeat your song again about?
Oh, Bill, it went like this. Whenever you meet an American, just be good to all of them.
I love that. I would just say, whenever you meet a fellow human being, just be good to all of them.
And what I just want to add
I know
before,
you, and I sense you embody that, so I really appreciate that, and I like that a lot.
thank you so much. But guys, and I've said this so many times to Nancy, this church and what I've learned from this church, taking part in the Take a Knee, you know, remember there on the lawn, as a unity, and the focus on social justice and the things that you are discussing, you know, the level of maturity, please have a lot of appreciation for what you have. This is not available in my community. I miss that. I really miss that. It's like education. It's like educated. All of you have worked in a certain level to get to this level, and as a group, you must have immense strength and tap into that and protect that unity. God bless you.